Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the African Kingdoms Expert 3v3 Showcase, hosted by myself, Resins22, and Robo, who will be co-casting with me today. This is going to be Game 2 in a best-of-5 series, and the goal of these matches is to show us how the top Age of Empires 2 experts will play the brand new expansion. For Game 2, each civ is required to pick 2 different African Kingdom civilizations that they did not pick in Game 1, and they will be playing on a modified version of Team Islands that contains the new animals, but it's otherwise exactly the same. You can find more information on the rules in the video description below, or you can ask a mod in the Twitch chat. You can see the draft on the screen. We are using Pip's Captain's Mode here. There was a mistake again in the draft. Unfortunately, the Rain team on the right, did end up picking the exact same 2 African Kingdom civs that they did in the previous game. So they're actually going to be the Ethiopians, the Malians, and the Japanese. And both teams fearing the Vikings on the water, but since these guys are very new to African Kingdoms, I feel like the Vikings are just a weaker civ on the water in general.
Well, they still have their strengths, but they just aren't the OP powerhouse that they used to be.
Yeah, and that's of course because in African Kingdoms we have the 2 new ships in the feudal age, the Fire Galley and the Demolition Raft, which are essentially smaller versions of the Fire Ship, and the Demo Ship. And the problem is here for the Vikings is that they don't get access to Fire Galleys, and the Galley Rush thing just might not end up being the best metagame strategy on African Kingdoms in the water. We'll have to see, as we haven't really seen that much expert water gameplay on this new setup.
Oh, we have a map with cows here. That's going to be nice. Extra food will make their uptimes a lot easier
Yes.
compared to a standard water map.
But no more elephants. Alright, so I will introduce the NC team, and then you can introduce Rain, I suppose. So, on the right side of the map, we have the island shared by the entire NC team. So, at the bottom of that island, we have Pedro playing as the Blue Byzantines, presumably for those strong fire ships that they have. A little bit above him, we have Andorran, aka Andorine, playing as the Green Portuguese. And above him, we have Nilpfert playing as the Red Malians.
Then on the Rain team, we have Kongenstad in the yellow as Malians. Then their pocket player is the Japanese Bals, which I think will be a very strong civ location for the Japanese fish boom. And especially if he back docks, there is so much fish back there. And then their south player is Spring as the Ethiopians.
Yes, now, unfortunately, for the Rain team, they ended up picking the Berbers and the Portuguese in Game 1, which was Arabia. And the way the rules are set up, they have to pick the 2 African Kingdom civilizations that they didn't pick before. And now they're ending up with the 2 civilizations that don't necessarily have a strong bonus on the water. The Berbers have their ships move 10% faster, and the Portuguese have a unique ship called the Caravel, which we will actually not be seeing from their team this game. They're going to have to go with the Malians and the Ethiopians, and the Malians critically lack Bracer on the water.
Well, I think the strong point about the Caravel is I think it fires similar to a Scorpion, where it does splash damage with its projectile. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would
correct,
be
yes.
very strong in the late game water battles if you get to like late Castle, early Imperial Age, where there's just masses and masses of ships floating around.
And they also have that unique technology on the water. I believe it's called Karak, which adds an extra little bit of armor to their ships. And the Portuguese, also their ships all cost 15% less gold. All of their units do. That applies to trade carts, monks, knights, boats, you name it. It's a pretty solid bonus on the water that only NC will be able to take advantage of. Now, of course, if you guys are looking for my live stream schedule, you can find it on my Twitch page by scrolling underneath the video player there. And if you're looking for the Game 1 and all the other matches, I have that in the video description as well. So, have you actually had any chance to play any of the new water balance yet, Robo?
I've tested like a Grush build and just like variations to see how it works going for like straight demo rafts and fire ships, but other than that, not particularly. There just isn't enough decent leveled water games on HD at this point in time, unfortunately.
I would have to agree with you here. I feel like a lot of players are making perhaps a little bit too much of jumpy conclusions on what the state of water balance currently is, where we just haven't had enough time to test it. It's going to be a while before the African Kingdoms metagame actually settles down, and that's part of the point of this series, is we get to see how the experts would handle this. One thing's for certain, I have to agree with Tato when he says that the demolition ships are very, very strong. So I look forward to seeing if there's any little bit of demo raft play in the early game.
Or just the whole counter system on water seems like a really nice idea, where you have the demo ships countering the fire ships, which counter the galleys, which theoretically should counter the demo ships. So we should hopefully see a nice combined arms sort of water battle.
Yeah, personally, I was actually a pretty big fan of the standard 1.0 seawater games. I mean, while they were repetitive and essentially every civilization was mostly the same on the water, except for any economy bonuses that they would have had, I always thought the galley micro was something that was very exciting to watch, and at least compared to something like Fire Galley micro. But there's gonna be no Vikings this game, so we're definitely going to be seeing something a little bit different than what we normally do.
The Byzantine players are going to definitely be spamming out fire ships as soon as they're able to.
Yeah, and they have that Greek fire technology that was added in the Forgotten that I believe gives their fire ships an extra 1 range. Combined with the faster attack speed on those fire ships, it's a great answer to galleys.
Oh yes, they're going to be so strong. Well, so far we've just got all the players starting to do a little bit of a fish boom. And I think a key thing to point out is that the rain team, they've all gone for back docks, or at least relatively backwards as far as they can go. So I'm thinking that they're probably going to go for a little bit of a later feudal time and try to get a stronger push with it through, like, maybe going for an extra dock earlier or something like that.
And if they're really crazy, they could be using maybe the Ethiopian bonus to just go straight to the Castle Age and maybe try and dish out some fire ships. And no, Pete, just very tired, as it took a long time to actually get into these games, and this is also a little bit early. So yeah, like you mentioned, I think that Rain's team is going for a more defensive approach with all of those back docks, and I'm interested to see what type of things they go for here, as NC with 2 docks at the front will probably be going for some earlier Feudal Age galley play. Well, I mean, I say that, but actually, Pedro just going up to the Feudal Age right about now. What about the rest of their players?
Seems like most players seem to be going up about now.
Yes, they're all going up at around the 25 population mark, and if we swap over to the opposing side, actually, Kangaskhat still making another villager, so like you said, they are definitely going to be waiting in the Dark Age a little bit longer before going up to the next stage, and we'll have to see if that pays off. Right now, Barl's using his scout to sort of push the deer near his town center to give him a little bit extra of an economy boost, and combined with the cows, these players will have a strong early game that will allow them to transition into perhaps some Feudal Age water play.
And Barles here is going for a fast castle with this Japanese fish boom in the back. So we're going to have to see how this works versus the almost triple Grush equivalent that we're going to be seeing from NC.
This reminds me, in my African Kingdoms Civ overview that I did for the Berbers, one thing I noticed during testing, and I don't normally enjoy running tests like these, but the extra movement speed that the Berbers have for their fishing ships is actually weaker than just the 5% faster work rate that the Japanese get for their own fishing ships. So 10% faster movement speed isn't actually that strong of an economy bonus. And it just goes to show exactly how strong the Japanese economy bonus is on the water, which will allow Barles to pull ahead quite a bit. Meanwhile, all of NC into the Feudal Age, and Spring's team trying their best to catch up.
And something that we completely forgot to point out in the first game is that Portuguese gives you free cartography.
Oh, yeah, that
so
it does.
That would have definitely helped out Spring's team in the last game, but that's sort of irrelevant at this stage. But the galley warfare here is going to have a significant advantage, being able to watch exactly what your ally is doing at every point of the game.
Based off the delay at the start of this tournament, I think we can tell that NC seems to be the team that has done quite a bit of practice and preparation, and we'll have to see if that pays off, as right now, Andorra, or Andorin, is going to be making a bunch of fire galleys right off the bat. So no galley opening here. He's anticipating galleys from his opponents. And, well, his opponents don't have that many ships, but Spring does have 2 galleys of his own. So Andorin going to anticipate this, and Pedro going for a strategic pause.
I have to mention at this stage that I really like the African dock. I think it looks really cool.
I'm going to have to agree with you there.
And their galleys look pretty nice with their big sails on Spring's galleys that he's making.
Yep. We can complain about, HD's poor optimization and lack of features as much as we want to, but if there's one thing that this thing does right, definitely I would say is the beautiful little unit and building graphics. Thank you so much, Motham, by the way, for the sub. We appreciate it. It looks like they're gonna message you and ask you something?
Yes, I'm just waiting for the message to come through.
Uh, everyone's like, what's this fire galley ship? I've never seen this before. Oh. And of course I have this fancy water mod. Ooh, so pretty. The one thing Voobly's missing is animated water. Well, anyway, in my limited experience with the new water balance, I would say that the winning approach seems to be a reasonable balance of actually all three ships rather than just one of them being the decisively OP one. Fire galleys seem to be quite useful, but I feel like you're probably going to want to back up no matter what your army comp is with maybe just a handful of demo rafts, because if you can get the explosion to actually hit multiple ships at the same time, that can be some pretty strong value, and it's one of the better answers to the fire galley, which just resists the galley shots so much. I also feel like if you don't build a couple of galleys, that once you take control of the water, then you offer no sort of offensive pressure to any of your opponent's land units. The fire galley is far too short range to actually kill any of those, and it's nice to be able to kite your opponent a little bit, do some damage to them.
Yes. Yes.
Wait a minute. Wait,
Oh,
are the team?
I guess they're going to be playing.
So wait, what was the issue about?
Apparently Nilford cannot sling Pedro, but he can sling Andoran.
What?
It's grayed out, and he is only able to sling a single one of his teammates.
That's some spaghetti code. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, so it looks like NC's strategy gonna get punished here. They have yet to adapt to the new African Kingdoms metagame, where sometimes you just can't sling one player on your team. This is a new aspect that they added to the game, similar to that tripping function in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where every now and then a random one of your teammates is, of course, disabled. You're no longer able to tribute them resources as a way to make games more exciting, random, and interesting, and to weaken the sling strategy. Brilliant design choice. I've literally never seen this bug before, but one of the reasons why I keep coming back is for this. Yeah. Every time I play HD, I find something new, a new exciting bug to play around with. Like Norther, I'm not sure if you've seen this bug, but I'm sure you would appreciate this. Apparently, Maghrabi camels, the unique technology that the Berbers have that gives their camels, so their camels and camel archers, a little bit of extra HP regen. It's terrible, but apparently it's bugged right now, and it also gives HP regeneration to your allies' camels and the enemy team's camels. This bug, though, is way cooler because I've never seen it before, and it only applies to one of them?
Yeah, apparently that's what they've said. He can sling it to Andoran, but not to Pedro.
So if I do upload this to YouTube, feel free, of course. You have permission from me to skip ahead a couple of minutes for us to figure out what the hell is actually going on. I might as well keep this in for posterity. That way you guys know what I suffer through.
On an almost daily basis when you stream.
Yeah, or whenever I just feel like playing. You feel free to skip ahead a couple of minutes. In the meantime, Robo and I are going to sit tight. I'm going to stare at Andorin's beautiful Portuguese architecture, and we're going to think about competitive African kingdoms. Now, for those of you who are wondering, it is absolutely a bug that Maghrabi camels affects enemy camels and your teammates' camels. It's only supposed to affect just yours. Even though it says camels, even though it says like camels regenerate HP, it's supposed to be just yours. I do think that might make it the worst technology in the game, considering that I think it was really bad before. I mean, it's really cheap, so there's no reason not to get it. It's not like it's a big investment, so at least it's modestly costed. But the HP regeneration is so low, and benefits your enemies too? Ugh.
I've sent you a link to the screenshot that Nilford has sent me.
Uh-oh. Is it possible that they need a market to receive resources? and that this is some sort of new bizarre spaghetti bug?
Well, as far as I know, I haven't seen Anduin or Pedro make a market.
Well then, there are no words for this.
Apparently, they had this in Arabia as well, but they weren't planning on slinging the Mind Player. So that's really fucked up.
Indeed it is. Well then.
I don't know how this is going to work though, because like if we GB and re, but they still have the problem, then we're just going to keep an infinite loops of GBing and hoping that they're able to sling the player they want to.
Maybe they just can't sling. That is so strange, and I was not prepared for this. Nor was I prepared for the massive delay. Shit. This is like how at the last minute we had to decide. Oh, by the way, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people asking later. Renaissance 22, why no special maps? That's because if you have spectators, it just breaks the special map entirely and the players are all in the wrong position, regardless of the spectator's position. So, yeah, maybe, I mean, would they be okay with not slinging? I mean, we can remake, but we might get stuck in an infinite cycle. Perhaps, my thoughts are, Pedro got slung so many resources last game that he's actually reached an integer overflow. And he's not allowed to receive any more until his 24-hour time period is up.
I could definitely see that being in the... Oh, and Milford has decided that they will continue quite graciously.
And I have to remember to put a timestamp in the video description for those people who felt the need to skip 6 minutes ahead. Woo! Let's do it.
Yes.
HD. No bugs, only features.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and we're back. Pedro, of course, tragically denied. Still has to repay off those student loans before he's able to actually receive any tribute of his own. So, this game, with a twist, the African Kingdoms metagame is truly far different than we anticipated. Pedro is restricted for no reason at all from being able to receive tributes. So that's gonna be entertaining, as Nilpfert can actually receive them. So we're in hard mode right now, and we're gonna see some fire galley fights. NC going for mass fire galleys, whereas Rain's team going for the galleys.
It'll be interesting to see how well small numbers of galleys deal versus fire galleys, but definitely down the south side, it looks like Spring is about to get his ass handed to him on this map. He's versus so many fire galleys at this stage. There's what, 6 of them versus 6 galleys? This is not going to end well for him at all.
Yeah, and perhaps Pedro doesn't even really need the tribute that much because he has his buffed Byzantine fire galleys, a little bit of extra attack speed. At the top, Kongan's God able to get a slight lead here with his own galleys, actually having one live at 3 HP since they're not coming in, tightly grouped enough. So, at least the top of the map for Kongan's God going somewhat well, but Spring struggling a lot to go deal with these fire galleys.
And this will be a small problem for Barles, possibly, if they go in and kill all of his fishing ships.
Yeah. That's another strength, I suppose, of the fire galleys, is that even though they can get kited, you can just use them to destroy fishing ships with ease. Spring gonna back up a little bit here. I would love to see a demolition raft, perhaps, as an answer to these fire galleys, and he might be able to catch out one of Barles' galleys here.
And we can see on the north side that Kong is starting to switch into fire galleys as well. Which I think would be the theoretical best combo at this stage, where like you have the fire galleys just run around and you try to kite them with your normal galleys and just get free damage that way.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's one of the stronger feudal age water galley compositions that you could have, a little bit of a mix of each. Meanwhile, Barles is actually up to the castle age right now, trying to defend with his own fire galleys. Fire galleys not particularly strong against opposing fire galleys, but it's decent. And meanwhile, Spring trying to regain control of the water a little bit, but you can see how strong these Byzantine fire galleys are. It's a struggle, and Kongan's God still holding the top side.
And Barles is just losing so badly to these Byzantine fires.
Wow. Actually, the Rain team is doing a pretty good job at holding off here, except, of course, Pedro just into the back line of Barles' fishing ships. He's going to lose a lot of them, but Pedro's eventually going to peter out, run out of steam, lose all his fire galleys, and then the rain team will be able to push back offensively. I would like to see Spring making something else besides galleys, I think, because there are no demo
does
rafts.
have one demo raft in his 2 demo rafts in his north group of galleys there.
Oh my. I'm still getting used to what those look like. Oh my god.
They look so silly. They're all just like this flat-bottomed ship.
It looks like a toboggan or something like that. Oh my goodness. Well, either way, these menacing demolition rafts are going to slide on the water over here. Can't quite place my finger on it, but it does look quite funny. Thank you so much, Geester Metwurst, for the donation. Really appreciate it. Just in time for Pedro to get demo rafted, or will he?
It looks like he will. Oh, that's like what, 4 fire galleys killed there, and 2 more on basically no health.
That was almost a really inefficient use of the fire galleys, of the demolition rafts from Spring, but Pedro did group his fire galleys a little bit closer, and he ended up losing quite a few. I don't know if that was just me, but I swear I heard the detonation noise like 5 times, even though nothing actually blew up, and now Pedro gonna turn around. Can he get the re-engage?
I think maybe it's every time you click on an enemy ship it makes a sound, maybe? That would be interesting. But on the north side, Kong has quite a decent-sized army here pushing down towards Andoran's docks.
Yeah, and Doran's just going to lose almost all of his fire galleys. He's going to lose all of them right now, and Kongensgod having the game in his life. Even though the scores are out of order for absolutely no reason whatsoever, Kongensgod at the top of this game with a massive navy is going to be able to camp the production of those docks. He's even moving out with a larger army of reinforcements, and this is when the galleys start to become strong as a way to poke at the land units.
But Andoran has landed. Just seeing Barles' X in the middle of the map.
Well, that would explain why he does not have really much of a navy at all. Here comes the BM Forward Town Center for Andoran, as he will be using this, of course, to just constantly have a supply of forward villagers. Portuguese Knights being 15% cheaper on the gold side of things with 3 stables will be a massive threat. And now it's up to the Rain team to defend against this land assault without really having any land defense of their own.
I think what would have been interesting if someone tried to go for a Dark Age transport ship. Someone needs to find a way to make that work. Like land for like a trush or something, like at a crazy early time.
I think that could work now that you can build transport ships in the Dark Age. I mean, it's a reasonable investment, but there's perhaps some room for experimentation there as, wow, Pedro also having a very strong showing on the water right now is actually mopping up all of Barles' ships as well as Spring. So these Byzantine fire galleys really paying for themselves. Meanwhile, Andoran losing almost all of his docks, but he doesn't really care because the focus now is on the land. It looks like Kongensgod has his side of the map walled up, but the rest of his teammates are going to have to deal with these knights.
I think the problem for Pedro, though, is that Kong is just such a large navy at this stage. I don't think he's possibly going to be able to catch up to him unless he drops down 2 or 3 docks right now and starts pumping. And, of course, he can't be slung at the moment for reasons that we don't understand. And
I mean, if NC wins this, then despite the handicaps, all the odds against them, they don't even need to sling Pedro to win. Well, these knights are definitely tearing Spring a new one. Unfortunately, he's just not really able to defend against this in the feudal age, and we've seen games time and time again snowball out of control where you just can't get to the castle age, and then you keep losing more and more villagers, and it gets even harder to get there. And well, Andoran's going to try his best to close this game out entirely with a forward siege workshop, perhaps a battering ram, some mangonels, but his forward builders might die to these pikemen, which is why he has a forward town center. And right now, Spring really, really struggling, and that means it's going to be hard for him to protect his own fishing ships.
I think Scorpions is probably the choice Andoran's going to go for. These Japanese pikemen are going to be very strong versus these knights with their faster attack speed.
Yeah, he's
to
not
be
going
honest, I think at this stage it's a little bit too late for Spring. See, he only appears to have about 20 vills left and almost no fishing ships.
Yeah, he is really far behind from that forward aggression. But Barles did manage to save him, like you mentioned, with those Japanese pikemen. Extra attack speed makes them even stronger versus knights, and without that forward siege workshop, Andoran has to back off and rebuild his army. I think Scorpions would be a good choice here. Scorpions very strong against units with low pierce armor. And right now, Pedro has his fire ship upgrade complete, a couple of war galleys in there. I wonder if they're going to sling Spring to bring him back into the game.
Honestly, I don't think it would. I think it'd be better to have Spring sling Kong, for example, and get him to try to win water. Just because Spring is so far out of the game now.
Yeah,
He's easily 20 bills short on Pedro.
Even with some resources, it probably wouldn't be enough to revive him. And right now, Pedro's going to swing his navy into the far left corner. Perhaps he's going to be picking off all of those fishing ships. Barl's going to mass up his own fire galleys and try and defend against that. I didn't mention this earlier, but actually Kongin's God made a swing around the entire right side of the map, and he killed all of the fishing ships for NC at the back. So both sides playing with a crippled water, and Barl's is going to lose these fire galleys.
Oh yeah, he's in Castle Age and he hasn't upgraded them at all, which is a significant problem for their early water. Because they went for a fast castle, but they didn't get any of the tech advantage.
Certainly going to bite them in the butt in this engagement, as Pedro has a decisive lead on the water. It's going to be very difficult for Barls to actually make a pushback here. And, we'll have to keep our eyes peeled if Spring decides to go for a sling or just try and build back. He's up to the Castle Age now, so he will be able to slowly build back through building lots of town centers. And right now, Kongin's God, very intimidating, despite being on the bottom of the scoreboard for literally no reason. He has, I think, the largest navy on the map, and even though Pedro has some fire ships, will it be enough?
Oh, I think there are enough war galleys that with some micro he could win this fight. It would be at least be a very close one. But I guess he must not believe he's got a chance, because he's just running and slowly losing them bit by bit.
Yeah, the fire ships did get buffed quite a bit in the Forgotten and then African Kingdoms. Now with a lot of extra HP, more armor, they are beginning to become a solid counter to war galleys. But I do think that he had enough with some micro. He's going to pull back regardless, a little bit scared, and perhaps Kongin's God will make like a demolition ship or two to try and deal with this. Another important thing to note is that Barls might not know that he actually needs to research War Galley to upgrade his fire galleys into fire ships. Not particularly intuitive, but it's one of those things you have to learn in African Kingdoms.
Oh, you need to upgrade War Galley and then you get the option to upgrade them? Or it upgrades all of them at once?
When you research War Galley, it upgrades all of the Feudal Age ships.
Ah.
Which is not intuitive.
I did not even know that.
A lot of people don't, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense that you'd research War Galley and it would buff up your fire galleys and your demolition rafts too. And Kongin's God recognizing he has superiority here, and, well, Pedro's going to retreat.
I think Andurin's battle on the land is going fairly well for him. He's starting to mass up some siege, and especially quite a few scorpions, but Barl's here, he's massing some rams. So if he manages to get those in close enough to the scorpions and mangonels, he could do quite a lot of damage.
I'm quite pleased to see that we're actually looking at these scorpions from Andoran. The scorpions in Monk, as opposed to the mangonel and Monk thing, will be very good at defending against these mass pikemen. It's something that Barls is going to have some trouble dealing with here. Monk's going to be able to apply some pressure on the other side of the wall. BM Watchtower coming up from Andoran, and he's also going to build this forward castle. I think he'll just barely be able to get it up in time before those pikemen get too close. And yes, Barl's going to recognize this and back up.
I think that's quite smart. I believe Andoran went and took his berries and ate the berry bush there to break in, rather than attack buildings. I believe that's what's happened here.
That would be amazing if that actually... I didn't get a chance to see that, but perhaps that did happen. And, well, poor Kongin's God is going to have to make a quick wall off at the back of his own base. Defensive siege workshop coming down. This forward castle will apply a lot of pressure, and it essentially neutralizes this this town center from Kongin's God almost entirely. Still, though, Kongin's God does have water superiority, and he is bullying around Pedro, who's trying his best to fight back with those Byzantine fire ships. Still, though, Kongin's God has a larger navy.
I'm honestly hoping we get to see some organ guns from the Portuguese player to try to help counter the pikemen.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because he's got a castle now, so there's no reason he shouldn't be making some. Or, other than the fact he wants trebs.
Yeah, since Green, Andoran is up to the Imperial Age, he will be able to make trebuchets, which allows him to siege his opponent's bases from an incredibly safe distance. And there is a huge number of Japanese pikemen flooding in here that he'll have to try and defend against. There's a lot of pikemen, a lot of rams. It's going to be a close battle. Meanwhile, at the top, Pedro trying to fight two fronts at once, and he has successfully, at least temporarily, cut off the production from Kangen's God's top docks, which means that the rest of his navy is not going to grow in size. Spring, slowly building back. Can Andorran hold the line here?
I think this has pretty much become a do-or-die push for NC at this stage, because Pedro is pretty much completely off water. Most of his docks are cut off as well. It looks like he's starting to do some back docks, but I think it might be a little bit too late at this stage, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot for him to recover on the waters, so... Yeah, so Spring might... Honestly, since the opposing team is quite weak on the water, Spring might have a chance to boom back in this, get out some army, and become another relevant fighting force. Meanwhile, those trebuchets are tearing right through Kangen's God's base, and he's quickly falling behind. There are a few organ guns here, and Kangen's God backing up onto the peninsula. He's running out of places to hide.
But Andorran's trying to build a second castle, and his villagers are getting picked off by a mangonel at the moment.
That's a really ambitious forward castle, but Barl's not firing any more shots?
No, attack! Kill the villagers! And man-at-arms are coming out. Whew. Man-at-arms and organ guns. New. Well, old, new. It's the meta for Portuguese, apparently.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2K rated African Kingdoms metagame. Wow, this castle actually went up. So Andorran will be able to hold the other front now, as Barl's going to have a lot of trouble breaking through that castle with just battering rams. Sure, if he has enough, he'll be able to get through this, maybe with arson, but it's going to be tricky, especially with some monks, some men-at-arms, which actually, they're long swordsmen now, some organ guns. I think Kangen's God might die, Andorran the MVP of this game, perhaps.
Well, he is being slung by Milford since they can't sling Pedro.
Yeah.
So, very nice adaptation of their strategy, dealing with this unfortunate HD bug at the moment.
Might as well just shove all that money onto Andorran. Right now, he is the raid boss. Can the entire Rain team take him down? Because if they lose their presence on the opposing team's island, then that's basically GG. As Rain has almost definitive water control. I say that, but Pedro is still doing his best to stall, be a nuisance with his own fire ships. I see a few demolition ships at the bottom side of the map for Spring, which might come to play at some point soon, and right now they just have to hold the line, but it's proving really difficult for Kangen's God as his castle's getting denied.
He did kill quite a lot of organ guns with a few mangonels, though. But now this Vil bashing the organ guns is an interesting decision, because they have no minimum range, so they can just keep blasting away with their nice mass hand cannon fire at once.
And not only that, but they actually have 2 Dura armor, meaning that they only take 1 damage from the villagers. Are these going to be some arrow slits towers from Andorran, or is he just going to go with the standard watchtower? That's the only thing that could make this game better, the guard tower into arrow slits upgrade.
Oh, that would be amazing. I don't think he actually has a university at this stage, though.
No, I guess he doesn't, but he might build a forward one. So I have to keep our eyes peeled. Meanwhile, Andorran just content to push on both fronts at once. These trebuchets at the top, unescorted, but it doesn't matter. The castle and the 2 watchtowers will be enough to protect them. Kangen's God doesn't have much in the realm of a land military. And the fact that this castle at the bottom side of their forward actually went up means that Andorran can keep applying pressure with these long swordsmen and slowly inch the line forward.
And he's still mining that extra stone that he's taken there. He's mining stone on his main island, I believe. Yes, he is. So he'll just keep pushing with castles. He could maybe even go for bombard towers if he wanted to. Because the Portuguese do get bombard towers.
That they do, and with that arquebus technology at the castle, it makes the... Okay, so apparently bombard towers already benefit from ballistics, but if you get the arquebus technology, it makes their bombard tower shots fire substantially faster. It makes them ridiculously difficult to dodge. It's an incredibly powerful upgrade. And these organ guns proving their worth here, so I like to see this unit utilized. I like Andorran's build a lot.
Oh, they are. They're a very strong unit against this sort of infantry-heavy military that Barles is going for. If he was going for, like, say, mass mangonels, then it'd be much more of a problem. But I guess that's what the longswordsmen are for.
A little bit of a miscommunication, it seems, on the bottom side of the map, as Kangen's God retreating with his own war galleys, while Spring going in with his demolition ships separately, and he did end up losing all of his ships for free. Thank you. I didn't actually see who that donation was from, so my bad. It has disappeared on my screen, and Twitch Alerts isn't updating it, so I will check it out after this game.
We've got a little bit of a treble happening between Kong and Andurin here at the stage. Kong keeping this castle up to protect his fragile eco. Oh, never mind.
It appears to be too little too late, as Spring trying to reinforce with a couple of crossmen, but Andoran's land push almost completely unopposed. Kongin's got trying to get up to the Imperialists to defend against the Trebs, which I like, but he just really didn't have much of an economy left or room to even build one, even with the fishing ships that he had on the water. And Barl's also struggling to hold the line here. What a solid back-and-forth game. NC with a pretty convincing victory, despite that weird sling bug. They came out on top.
It was very well played, adapting to the adverse HD conditions.
Separates the men from the boys.
Oh, certainly.
So what did you think of every player's strategy, I guess, in this game? What did you think of their game plan?
I think Bal's strategy would have been nice if he actually got the War Galley upgrade. Because he just lost too many of the fights early when he still only had Fire Galleys versus the much larger number of Pedro. Whereas if he'd had that extra tech upgrade, he might have been able to pull it back a bit and keep Spring on the water early. And if they'd done that, they might have been able to push the middle a little bit faster and possibly even deny Andurin's landing. If they'd been able to kill the transport ship or at least see it.
Yeah, Andoran's push was very, very good. But it's important to also note that Pedro had a very impressive showing on the water too. Able to, almost hold his own 2v1 against his opponents, and like you said, a huge chunk of that was because Barles lacked the War Galley upgrade. The Byzantine fire ships really pulling through here. Strong showing for NC. GG.
Very well played.
Alright, so, for those of you who are still tuning in, there is at least another game here, so this is a best of 5. Right now we're 2-0 for NC, but stick around, there will be a game 3, and hopefully maybe even a game 4 and game 5 after that. The Rain team is down but not out, as game 3 will be Kilimanjaro. Hopefully this doesn't end up being a 3-0 sweep, because I'd really like to see some African Kingdoms Regicide Fortress, so I've got faith in Rain. Thank you so much for watching so far, and don't go anywhere. You can find my live stream schedule on my Twitch page, and hopefully the next time that we cast a tournament doesn't take this long to get into the games. We don't have to do it this early in the morning.
Oh, we can always pray.
Yes. Thanks again, Robo, of course, for organizing the tournament and Pip for the captain's mode. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back into the next game shortly. I'll have links to everything you need in the video description below. And yes, game 3 coming soon.